Welcome to ReThink You, bringing you ideas, inspiration, and motivation to start living the life you were created to live. Here is your host, author, trainer, speaker, and coach, and founder of ReThink You, Kim Lovings.
Well, welcome back to the ReThink You podcast. This is episode 107, and it was my pleasure to interview Joanna Kleier, who is a colleague of mine in the Les Brown Power Voice system. Joanna Kleier is a wonderfully gifted transformational life coach and motivational speaker, and is the founder of the Flying Camilian LLC. She's also a proud resident of Duarte, California, known as the City of Hope. And this is very fitting because knowing Joanna as I do, she brings the light of joy and hope into the lives of everyone she meets. Joanna is a wife, a mother, and back in 2014, Joanna had a difficult experience with bullying in her workplace, which pushed her back into her alcoholism. Despite 5 months in bed, she continues to press on with 3 years of sobriety in recovery. Joanna has assisted in hospice care and advocated for a fellow co-worker experiencing the same bullying. For the past 25 years, Joanna has continued to help women transition from troubled marriages to a place of self-love and true independence for themselves and their children. She's an advocate for victims' rights in her community, and Joanna plans to educate others on how to stand up to bullying. Despite all of her life struggles, Joanna has pushed through her fears to reach her true why for living, which is what we'll be talking about. Her and her husband Derek have been married for 25 years and raised 2 beautiful and talented daughters. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Joanna Kleier. So Joanna, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the ReThink You podcast because you and I know each other, and I'm going to explain to our listeners how we know each other. But for now, I would love you, Joanna Kleier, right, to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your story. How did you end up doing what you're doing right now?
I am so glad to be here with you, Kim, and I truly appreciate your invite, and I enjoy the work that you're doing. I was introduced to Les Brown a couple years ago when I was coming back from a bullying situation at work at one of my locations. It was, looking back, in 2013, I was transferred to a location where I was being challenged with my position with another woman who found me as a threat to her job because we had the same title. And so what had happened was I put myself in a situation where I didn't get out of that situation. I made the best of a bad situation because I never gave up in my life, not once. And I always had a very positive attitude. And so it was very difficult for me, very foreign for me, because the first location, I was at the grocery store for 24 years without any issues with people, places, things, or situations. I was able to handle them mostly pretty well until this situation. I was going in blind, and there were things that was not communicated to me in the corporate level. And so I went in blind, not knowing what was going on, and I ended up being victimized by a person in that. And I decided to work on myself, keep trying. She knocked me down, pretty far down, to where I ended up in my addiction with alcohol ended up increasing over time with stresses of life. I didn't know how to deal. And so what had happened is as time went on, I was there about a year or so with her, took it, and I ended up turning her in to the corporation, having an investigation in her treatment towards me, and I ended up having no support whatsoever. I was being interrogated in the office about her treating me that way, and the story had flipped. She blasted me. She attacked my character, and then I ended up leaving work that day in the interrogation. going home and not going back for 5 months. I was in bed for about 4 months.
Oh.
And then I ended up putting myself into a rehab voluntarily because I had 2 children that needed me. And I was at ground zero. And so over time, since 2014, I've been in recovery, in and out. I've been helping women this whole 25 years of being married. I've been married 25 years. I've been helping women leave toxic relationships. And I'm being drawn, they're being drawn to me. And then they come to me and I help them with self-love and self-support. So I'm very maternal. I'm very helpful. And it's been a really awesome thing. But on the personal level, having those hits really hard, being attacked with my character was really, really, really hard. And I let all that get to me. I let it take me out. But it didn't let it take me out completely. And so my story is that of rebirth, that of reclaiming, and that of growth and recovery, and taking my help of people, my sensitivity, and helping the world with that. And
That's
I'm
powerful.
ready.
Wow. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. I was just responding to you. I think that's just so good.
Thank you. And it is important for the listeners to know that it's not okay for anybody to mistreat you. You can remove yourself out of a situation. And I realized that over time, what had happened was once I left, I got transferred out because I found out stuff about corporate and what they did over the last several years that went uncovered. And I was about to implode them in my location, so they got rid of me. And I decided what I was going to do is rise up, help somebody else. So I helped somebody else before I left, who was treated exactly the same way as I was. So I'm an advocate for victims' rights. I grew up as my mother was a domestic violence victim. My dad was a PTSD survivor of wars, Vietnam and Korea. And I witnessed a lot of abuse and victimization and traumatization. And so I was just being triggered. Once I left, I realized I was just being triggered by old wounds. And I realized that I needed to not take it anymore, not take the negativity, learn how to process, ignore it. Ian Harvey did a couple sessions with me. He's another one of our beautiful people. He said, use the words block and delete. And I had been working on not allowing person, place, or situation affect my life anymore because I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yes.
And I knew that if I helped somebody, which I've always done my whole life, and my parents did that as well, they helped women get out of abusive situations. They would stay at my house. I've helped people all these years, women all these years. I'm friends with them to this day, about 5 or 6 women. And I'm very proud of what I've done. And it's something I fall into naturally. And so I just decided, since I fall into it naturally, why don't I just do it for a living? Why don't I go bigger?
Right.
I found wonderful people. Danette May, she's a health expert. She helped me with meditation, healthy eating, movement. Les Brown, Lisa Nichols. It was like one on top of the other. And then I started reading books. My mom suggested boundaries. Thank God my parents got help in the end, and they stayed married for 41 years. And so I have the example of courage, working through your stuff, and not remaining a victim. And so I was very fortunate.
That is such a powerful story, Joanna. You said so much in there that I want to unpack a couple of things that I think it's so important that you've drawn attention to. You know, when people think of the topic of bullying, I just want to start with that. They think of bullying immediately in the school scenario, and people forget the amount of bullying that goes on in the workplace. And I wouldn't say I've had as bad an experience, but I've had experiences that I know what you mean, where suddenly you are being persecuted, but you're the one that's actually the injured party. And there comes that point when you say, okay, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. So good for you for picking yourself up, because when we have those patterns of addiction and weakness within us, that's where we retreat to the minute we feel we can't face those walls of fear. So good for you for breaking through that. I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then in turn becoming an advocate. And, also now, as I said, your path to recovery out of addiction, good for you. And congrats on your 25th wedding anniversary. I know that we spoke recently just about that. And what a great model that your parents gave you, in their 41 years. And often our parents are phenomenal role models when we have them. So thank you so much for sharing that part of the story. So now sort of if we kick it up a notch and say, I know that you're looking at this, and it's so true of what I do with ReThink You, that so many times people's purpose and their passion is actually part of their life story, and they think it's something over here on the side, when in fact it's something that's part of them, and that's the realization you've stepped into. So talk to me about what the bigger goal is and what the bigger vision is, and where are you going with this?
Well, the bigger goal is to let people know that not all situations end up bad forever, that there's an end to everything. There's a book called Necessary Endings that's very good. I can't remember the author. That was one that helped me. The Boundaries book by Henry Cloud Townsend is another good book that my mom suggested after my dad was removed from the house, as well as Jack Canfield's The Success Principles.
Yes.
That was one of the first ones that I really liked. It was like listening to a coach saying, go, 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 you got this. It was
That's
really
a phenomenal.
the most
Yes, and I'll make sure I
amazing
put
book.
references to these in the podcast notes so that listeners know where to find these things. Those success principles are powerful. You're right. They just get up and go. Just when you think you've got no more get up and go, he'll get up and go with you every day. So, what else were you doing?
There was also another person that I loved very dearly. She died of leukemia at age 41 last year.
Wow.
She had 3 children, a beautiful husband that she knew since high school. And she was the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life. And I learned a lot from her, but she always had health issues. And she always fed her kids organic products, healthy eating, because it helped her feel better with her own health issues.
Right.
And then she liked Danette May on Facebook. Danette May had the whole story that we had: rock bottom, loss of a child in utero. She wrote a memoir called The Rise, an unforgettable story of self-love. It was the most amazing book I've ever heard. It was one of the first ones I listened to on a podcast, on Audible. I cried and I cried and I cried. Her story revealed so much growth after a bottom. And she taught me about meditation, visualization, and all sorts of wonderful, yummy tidbits. I've always been in movement for probably about 15 years now, because I knew that it helped with my depression. I was actually diagnosed clinically depressed and had bipolar disorder. And it was because I allowed my thinking to become stinking.
Yes.
And I had allowed it to become who I was. And I let it take over like a dis-ease. And it was very awful. So when I found her, it was life-changing, because she shared her story, just like we do with Les Brown in the Power Voice System. She did everything that Jack Canfield had suggested in the Success book, and she follows all great minds, Napoleon Hill, all these people. So she was a great mentor to help me with self-love, and she helps women around the world. And so I love her to pieces. I use her product. I promote her everything all over the place, because she changed my life. Then we had Lisa Nichols. She taught me about motivational speaking. And so I just kind of dabbled in that very little bit of time. And then here we go, Les Brown. Boy, that was just the icing on the cake for me, because it was motivational, inspirational, and where I was down, he lifted me up. And that's what I do. I do everything that Les Brown does. I say the same saying he says. I think the same way he thinks. And I feel a connection that it's the most amazing experience I've ever experienced. I've never felt this engaged with somebody in a very long time. And my goal is to allow people in recovery, for one, to share their stories, because I have learned, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, and it's actually a syndrome. I listen to that book as well. I can't focus very well, so I listen to books. It's the best way.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
anybody having problems focusing because of the stress or depression, Audible's the way to go.
Yeah.
So all those things combined has created the new person that is becoming me.
That is becoming, right. But, I have to affirm you, Joanna, because, everything that you're doing is what we say when we teach people to reinvent themselves. It starts with that self-love and that self-care, but it's also making the choice. You've chosen to rebirth yourself. You've chosen to, read the books, listen to the podcast, do the work, as Les says, do the work that's required. And I think that I want to encourage the listeners, because many times, all the books out there, all the tools that are available. It's up to you to make the choice to engage with them and use them. And so that I wanted to congratulate you, because you're one of the most on fire people in our group. And I just think, I'm just watching this transformation happening from the inside out, and it's beautiful to observe. And I think that there are many victims and people who are trapped in these problems that are going to find you, as we know that once you start stepping in to what your true purpose is, you attract these people to you, because they will realize that you're there to help them. So that is just so, so powerful. Let's talk, and I know we've got a few more minutes here. Tell me one or two, I know you've given us a lot of information, Joanna. Tell me one or two specific life lessons that you would like to pass on. What's the first one that comes to mind? Because I know life has knocked you down a few times, but as Les likes to say, as long as you fall lying up, you can get up. A setback is a setup for a comeback, right? Or a setback is a set. You know how he says it. And you're in the comeback mode, you're on the mat, but you're getting back up, and you're getting back up through all of these blows. So pick one lesson that you'd like to pass on, and then I'm going to ask you for a second.
Okay, there's one thing that I've noticed that runs through my whole being as far as victimization, is that I feel shame.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad, and also I feel fear because of the shame, self-loathing, and the negative self-talk. The one thing I realize is that negative self-talk will become repetitive. 85% of our thoughts can be negative.
Right.
And so I was very negative in my thoughts, and they would just keep going over and over and over again, and it would create an insanity in my mind and my body and my spirit. And so number two would be to recognize the fear, recognize the shame. And number two is to know you're not alone. Do not isolate. Find a friend, find a support group, find somebody that will listen to you. They're out there, and you're not alone.
Right. That's powerful, because, people feel shame when it's actually guilt. So, you've done something wrong, but you are not wrong. And not being able to separate who you are from the behavior is actually one of the key lessons I teach in ReThink You. And it's so important in that recovery to be able to separate that and step out of the shame. So thank you for that. And then, reaching out for help. I loved, and I apologize to the listeners, we keep referring to Les, but we're working with Les Brown right now, and he's such a dynamite person to work with. But I loved what he said last night about how we have our public selves, and then we have our personal selves, and then we have our secret selves. And I thought, it's in the secret self that we hide the shame and the guilt and the negative voices, or the choir in your head that's singing your failures to you. It resides in the secret self. And as soon as you reach out for help and get help, it's no longer secret. It's now exposed to the light, and you can now fix it. So that's my encouragement.
Yeah.
And that's an important life lesson. So thank you for sharing that about asking for help. Life was not meant to do alone. Anything else? Any other lessons or insights? I know you've raised a beautiful family, and you've got this wonderful marriage, but any other life lessons that you would perhaps give somebody who's struggling in their own journey right now of either confusion or they're trapped in a situation that they're not comfortable with?
Well, the first thing that has helped me is to be in acceptance of the way things are and not fight reality. Reality is your friend, and we learn from the hard times. We just don't see it while we're going through it. So if I were to tell the listeners, be patient, be kind, go out for a walk in nature, tell yourself with an I am statement. I am statements are scientifically proven to change your brain chemistry. You can start with I am safe. You can start with I am strong. My friend Angie told my mother while she was in major surgery recovering, you have to tell yourself that you are Superwoman until you become Superwoman. My
Very
mom,
good.
after hearing that, changed. Her will to live changed. So I am strong and I am safe, just to start with those two things. And to listen, there's all sorts of places to go on YouTube and the internet for all sorts of information. You can, whatever rings into your heart, that's what you listen to.
Right.
Whatever rings to your heart. What's happened is with a lot of people and myself, we've quenched the spirit. We've quenched the inner soul. We don't think that we're worthy. We don't feel we're worth it. We have to change our messaging about how we think about ourselves. We have to see ourselves as other people see us. We are beautifully and wonderfully made.
Yes, we are. Powerful words indeed. Thank you for that, Joanna, that constant reminder that I think that perhaps, just that first statement, I am worthy, is probably the most important, because that's one of the lies that Satan loves to keep us trapped in. And it's this false self that tells us that we're not worthy of success, we're not worthy. And yeah, I'm worthy. And I love that. I'm safe, I am loved, I am strong. You're right. The I am statements are incredibly powerful. They certainly are to the ReThink process. So everything you're saying really resonates with the work that I do with people. So anything else you'd like to share with us as we close out here? I've so enjoyed listening to your story, and I know that there's somebody out there that was meant to hear this message today, which is why I want to bring it out there to the airwaves and into the ether, as they say. Anything that you'd like to say as we close out?
Well, never give up on yourself. Even when people will tell you you can't do something, never give up on yourself. Don't listen to it. And surround yourself around only positive quality people that believe in you. And ignore the outside negative world. I work in customer service for 31 years, and I brought a lot of positivity, a lot of powerful, a lot of words where people were like saying, when is my next session? I look forward to seeing you again. Or if they don't see me, where have you been? I'm a life coach in that cashier check stand, and especially with COVID. Don't give up. Don't give up. Think positive. You have two options. You can either think positive or negative. Which one do you want? Just choose the positive. It feels a whole lot better.
It really does. And as they says, you're always either moving forward or backward, right? And you're making wise choices. And again, I just affirm you. And I think it's absolutely beautiful to see you on this journey, Joanna. So thank you again for taking the time to tell your story to us today. And
thank you for your time.
Yeah, I'm going to be posting for our listeners how to find you and sharing your resources out there. And as I mentioned, this video is always available on YouTube. So if people are listening to the podcast, they could click over on YouTube if they actually want to meet you face to face. So Thanks again for your time, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Kim. You have a great day.
Thank you.